As I said, the theme for this morning is wisdom, and so I thought it would be a good time to share with you some very, very profound words of wisdom. Are you ready for this? It's always darkest before dawn. So if you're going to steal the neighbor's newspaper, that's the time to do it. If you lend someone $20 and never see him again, it was probably worth it. Give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach him how to fish and he will sit in a boat and drink beer all day. The quickest way to double your money is to fold it in half and put it back in your pocket. Eagles may soar, but weasels don't get sucked into jet engines. Diplomacy is the art of saying "good doggy" while looking for a bigger stick. Before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in his shoes. That way, when you do criticize him, you're a mile away and you have his shoes. And then finally the question, when opportunity knocks, will we be home? So you heard from the writer of Ephesians, who gives a nod to the wisdom of taking advantage of one's opportunities. This is the way the writer puts it. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time, because the days are evil. Making the most of the time is another way of saying that we need to be home when opportunity comes knocking at our doors. Now, I'm sure that if I ask each one of you to talk about someone in your life who has done exactly that, who has opened the door when opportunity came knocking, you would all come up with some name, hopefully other than yourselves, because we all know someone like that. In my life, the best example I can think of is my parents. Today just happens to be my dad's 77th birthday, and so I thought that I would dedicate this sermon specifically to him. My mom knows that she's really the one who sits on the throne in their house, so she will not be offended if I dedicate today to my dad, because without my mom in my dad's life, he would have ended up either in jail or on Skid Row, and probably both, and that's what he says, and I think he's right. My dad is not an educated man, at least not in conventional terms. He left high school after the 9th grade, although he later managed to earn his GED. He would tell you that he attended the School of Hard Knocks, and he graduated multiple times. He began life as no one should have to live life or begin life. That is, without a father. His birth father, died in an accident while my dad was still in his mother's womb. Think about that. But fortunately, he had 2 older brothers and a couple of uncles who, along with his mother, helped him survive a very tough childhood. And like many men of that era, he could not wait to join the military. And so as soon as he was old enough, he joined the Navy. And there he became a trusted helmsman. That is, he would steer the ship in and out of port for his captain. He was the captain's first choice, to steer the ship in and out of port. Maybe he had very good hand-eye coordination, which made him a very good hitter in baseball and later on in fast-pitch softball. On the rare occasion he struck out at the plate, the other team would throw a downtown parade for the pitcher with confetti streaming down from tall buildings. I know that's an exaggeration, right? But a small exaggeration. After the Navy, he worked in places like grocery stores and meat packing plants and produce companies. For several years, he was a door-to-door milkman. Whether he realized it at the time or not, he was learning the grocery business inside and out with all of those jobs. And in January of 1970, when he was in his early 30s, his informal training paid off. My parents learned of an opportunity in a neighboring county. There was a small drive-in grocery store that was going to be put up for sale. They heard about it through some friends of theirs because their friends' parents owned this little store, and so they heard about it, and they decided they would jump on that opportunity. So they borrowed some money to go with the money that they had already managed to save. A small amount compared to today's standards, but that's all it took. At first, though, it seemed like a very risky opportunity. Initially, the business wasn't even large enough to hire any help, and so my folks ran the store. They worked all the hours, and my sister and I, we were 10 and 9 years old at the beginning. We would pitch in and do whatever we could, but eventually they were able to hire a couple of relatives, trusted relatives or two, until they could build up the business enough to hire people from the town. And they ran that little mom and pop store for 33 years until February 2003, when an electrical short in a Coke box, it shorted out and it caused a fire that burned down the entire building in the middle of the night. And we did not rebuild the store because my parents were already in their early to mid-60s, and none of us kids wanted it, so we just did not rebuild. But the obvious point to this story is that when opportunity came knocking at their door, my parents opened the door. No one would ever accuse them of being modern-day Solomons, who was the wise king of Israel. But they are two of the wisest people I know because, as the writer of Ephesians said, they made the most of the time. They seized the day, carpe diem, to use the language of the Latin poet Horace. Again, we all have stories of people in our lives who have made the most of their opportunities, and yet the reality is that most of us miss opportunities when they come our way. When opportunity knocks on our doors, we usually are not home, or if we are home, we don't open the door. We don't respond. Now, I found a blog essay that was about this particular issue, and I think it is an accurate reflection of a reality. This is what the person says. Real opportunities are like the salespeople that knock on our door or call us while we're eating dinner at night. We don't want to open the door or answer the phone because we're irritated. We think we know how it's going to pan out, and quite frankly, we're afraid that we're not going to be able to say no to their questions or their solicitations. Real opportunity, the writer said, are the ones that we don't immediately see. They come by at the most unexpected, mostly inopportune times. We are so obsessed with other distractions or our own opinions that we normally miss the majority of opportunities that fall across our path. When we do see opportunities, we treat them the same way as we treat inappropriate salespeople, with disdain and a bad attitude. And I will say that typically we shy away from opportunities because we are afraid it's going to lead to a lot of work. And I think Thomas Edison said it best. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. This brings me to the current plight of our congregation. Do we know a good opportunity when we see one? When opportunity knocks, will we be home? When it beats on our door, do we run and hide because we assume nothing good can come out of a loud, startling knock on our door? Or do we take a risk and open the door? In other words, are we sufficiently opportunistic? Now, I know the word opportunistic has a bad connotation. If you read the definition of what it means to be opportunistic, it means this: exploiting chances offered by immediate circumstances without reference to a general plan or moral principle. We don't want to be opportunistic in the sense of being exploitative and not having moral principles. And yet we should be attentive to our immediate circumstances and look for opportunities that might come our way. Now, as you know, however, the recent history of our congregation is best described as doors closing rather than opening. And the end of the deal with Giant Eagle was just one more closed door, slammed in our faces, it seems, in a long list of closed doors. Or at least it seems that way. I wonder, though, if maybe we can reinterpret what has been happening here the last few years. Rather than interpret the events that have taken place as a long line of closed doors, broken deals, broken dreams, broken promises, can we instead interpret these events in a more positive way? Alexander Graham Bell said, famously, "When one door closes, another opens. But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the one which has opened for us." Could it be that everything that has happened to this congregation, especially in terms of the last two potential buyers and the loss of those buyers in the last few years, could it be that these are doors that needed to be opened and shut so that a bigger and better door will open in the future? Now, I'm not one to say all things happen for a reason. I know we like to say that, but I try not to say that. That's just not my theology. I do believe in cause and effect, but I don't necessarily believe that everything that happens for a good reason. Because sometimes stuff just happens, right? However, I do think Alexander Graham Bell is right in that sometimes we get so hung up on closed doors that we aren't able to turn around and see the door that is opening behind us. I'm not trying to sound coy, by the way. I have no idea what's going to happen in our future with the current building property or the new site. I have no idea. Time will tell, right? I just want to make sure that we keep our options open and that when real opportunity comes knocking at our door, we won't get so irritated and cranky and startled that we fail to open the door. This is what wisdom looks like on the ground in practical terms. Practical wisdom is about making the most of the time. You don't have to be a Solomon to make the most of the time. You don't have to be a Horace to seize the day. You don't have to be Socrates or Plato or Aristotle to be wise. You just have to listen for the knock on the door, whether it's a light tap or a hard knock. And yes, you can learn that, as my dad did, at the school of hard knocks. Amen.